All right. Thank you all for tuning in for our third and
Episode 3.
Story 3.
Story by story.
And like I said last time, we were told that if you get 3 done, like ups your percentage of success.
So we're basically successful.
We've accomplished it. We're officially podcasters. I feel like this meeting will probably be a little different than the others because although we've spent some time with our guest, we don't know a lot of your backstory. So the first one, when we talked with Jim, we both knew him and he's a leadership role in our lives. And then the last one with Lindsay, of course, you know her in and out, and I got to know her better. And so this time we're both very much coming in blind.
It's true.
So we're excited about it. So Leah, who do we have? Tell us who our friend is.
So today we pull up a chair for a man who wears many hats, though most of them are probably dad hats. Justin Dombroski is a proud girl dad to 4 daughters, a faithful servant in our church family, a groove layer on the bass guitar, and a voice behind the mic as a fellow podcaster. But don't let the calm tone fool you. This man is on a mission. He's not just changing the beat, he's changing his life one bite at a time, from junk food junkie to clean eating crusader. Justin's story is one of discipline, transformation, and divine rewiring. Let's dive in with Justin. Welcome to Story by Story.
She sold you nice, right?
You don't have to tell my face.
Sorry.
Tell where I got that from.
Thanks, Leah. That was
You're
wonderfully
welcome.
written.
Me and Chat worked together.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for
Yes.
so many things. We'll make it very clear. You helped us get started.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes.
This is very much a generous sitting time where you're taking time out of your life to sit with us. However, you've put in a lot of hours before this too.
It's
And so
nothing. I appreciate it. I love the opportunity.
we're anxious to get to know you better. So we all go to church together.
And Justin has a podcast too, which is,
I do.
what's
yeah.
it called?
Pipe, Spores, and Pals. It's a secular podcast, but covers some of my hobbies.
Well, that's why you have been so beneficial to us. You are an
Us
podcast
newbies.
expert. And we are still like, how do you turn this on?
No, not at all. I love conversational podcasts. I love when you can listen to a podcast and feel like you're in the room with somebody. If it's just one person sitting at a microphone just monologuing, it's not any fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, we want you to take the lead. We want to hear all about you.
Start from the beginning.
Yes.
Oh, man. Well, I am the oldest of 3 boys.
All boys.
Yep. Yeah, I went from being a family of all boys to having
Only
all
daughters.
girls. Yeah. Talk about a major
Culture shift.
Yeah. I went from like testosterone fueled country living to what we lovingly call our little hobby farm, estrogen acres.
Yeah.
So, but as a kid, my dad, he was a pastor. He sold insurance for Farm Bureau Insurance, and he also owned a drywall business. And so he was tri-occupation.
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about a man with many hats.
Yeah.
kidding.
My dad is the hardest working person I ever met in my life.
Oh.
And he was my pastor, or he was an assistant pastor for a while, youth pastor for a little while, and then eventually became my pastor.
Is that here in Indiana?
Yes.
Okay.
I grew up in Huntington, Indiana. So my parents were both saved before I was born. And so I was born into a God-fearing family, and my dad was in the ministry. And so I grew up in church, made a profession at the age of 5. I was kind of scared into it. I say he was like 9 or 10-year-old boy in our church. He had he went into cardiac arrest at school and died.
Oh, wow.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and so then there was like this big, all the Sunday school teachers and, everybody at church was very much, got to get saved. It could happen to you.
Oh, yeah.
And so I made a profession just as like, well, I don't want to die and go to hell.
Right.
So, that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
I got to say these words so I can go to heaven.
I feel like a lot of times people will almost think that it's easier for kids in a Christian environment to surrender their hearts to the Lord. I'm not saying it's harder, but it's not necessarily clear. It's not easily defined. Sometimes it's more confusing because it's more cultural. That's a common thing at young ages with people who grew up in church. I mean, I felt that way myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember making my proclamation at 7. I was like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. It's taken me 7 years. I've been here my whole life. You know what I mean? I remember feeling
What was
that
I
way.
doing as a baby?
Yeah.
Wasted all that time.
But it was like, I honestly thought I was going to embarrass my parents. Like, why hasn't she done it sooner? You know what I'm saying? So
I
anyway.
identify with that so much. So I guess let me start telling a little bit forward, because you gave a perfect segue. You know, growing up in church, I was raised in a very conservative Baptist church, like ultra over the top.
Like independent Baptist? Is that what you'd say?
Yes, independent fundamental Baptist. KJV only.
Yes.
Women can't wear pants. You can't be saved unless you read the King James Version. If you got saved with an NIV, you really need to question your salvation. Not inspired version.
Oh my goodness.
Is what I was, Anyway, yeah, I believe that there are many well-intentioned believers in that background. That's what I was brought up in.
Yes.
And it was very much, although they won't admit it, it's very works oriented. It was all about like, you got to do this way. You got to do that way. You have to work and walk this way. I wouldn't say that your salvation hangs on it, but they would say that you should question your salvation if you aren't showing these fruits that we expect of you. And, a lot of those fruits that they would claim aren't biblical fruits. They make their arguments for it. But anyway.
What would be an example of that? Because I did not grow up in.
I mean, the Bible talks about, men having essentially their attire, and, they'll take the verse like men shouldn't have, it's a shame for a man to have long hair, and it's a shame for a woman to have her head uncovered. And so they'll take a lot of those verses, and there's a lot of denominations that do that. Sure. And you have some that actually wear literal head covering because of those verses. Yeah. But they'll just take those kind of things and take them to the extreme. And, for some of the listeners, that might be their thing. And I don't mean to cast any judgment. I just, to segue there, it was very much about like, do this, do that, do this, do that. Have these works in your life. You got to do these things. You have to go every week and go door knocking on so many doors and pass out so many tracts and get so many conversions.
And according to them, that would like make you more acceptable to God, or?
It's just fruit that you're a believer. If you weren't doing those things, they would highly question,
where's your priority?
Where
are you
is
really
your priority?
saved? Yeah.
Interesting.
So I grew up with that, and I grew up doing all of those works, and I didn't have a real profession. I know that at some point, and I've told some people this, it took me a long time to understand this. I lived in this weird fear/embarrassment for years, because at some point I realized that my profession that I made at 5 wasn't real. And so I can sit here and with great what used to be embarrassment, but with excitement, tell you, I don't know the day that I got saved, but I know that I am. Yeah. I know that I wasn't at that moment. And I know that I made another profession at the age of 18, but I can tell you at 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, I was like, man, I should really go forward and do this thing. But what will the church think? What will my dad think? They'll think I'm a liar. I supposedly got saved when I was 5. Oh, you can't do this. You've taught, little kids in Sunday school and Awana and all these things.
Right.
Like, what are they all going to think if you go forward and make another profession? So just keep kicking the can down the road. And kind of in the next chapter of my life at 18 years old, I graduate high school, and I didn't really know what I was doing with my life. And my dad, being from that background, my dad said, well, you should go to Bible college. And I really do feel like that's what the Lord had for me, because it was at that moment where I got that freedom. I wasn't in my home church anymore. I moved 2 states away to Tennessee, and I didn't know anybody but my girlfriend at the time, who also went there. And even while I was there, I struggled with that, I need to get this settled. I feel like I was already a believer at that point, but I had never, since I had come to that belief in Jesus Christ as my Savior and understanding, we could sit here for hours and talk about the doctrine and the theology behind that, but I know that I was a true believer at that point. But I had never gone and made it public to anybody. Mm-hmm. I was still clinging to the fact, in my Bible, it still said that I went forward and got saved at 5 years old and was baptized. And I'm sitting at this school in Tennessee, and I'm struggling with this. And my girlfriend at the time, she this had to have been ordained by God because she said, I made a profession when I was 7 and I don't know that it was real. She's like, I feel like I need to get saved. Like I had this instant relief, not
Right.
alone, but then I just got this fight from the devil. Like I literally was on my bunk in my dorm room and I was weeping, just working through this, like literally working through my salvation and just weeping like a baby. And I haven't talked to him in years, but my roommate at the time, Aaron Dry, I literally haven't talked to him since my freshman year of college. He was a senior. He popped his head over the edge of the bed. He was on the top bunk. I was on the bottom bunk. He said, "Hey, buddy, you doing okay?"
Oh,
And I just like let it all out. Like I
no.
was just like, "No, I don't," And I told him everything I just told you guys. I told him. He was like, "Well, there ain't no reason to be upset about it, buddy. Let's just get it figured out right now."
Oh,
And there was just like such like
gentleness with
gentleness and
Mhm.
wisdom in that moment. He was like, none of that matters.
Mm.
None of that matters.
Holy Spirit was using him.
Hardcore.
So wherever you are, way to go.
it.
Letting God use you there.
And I don't believe that's the moment I came to belief in Jesus Christ as my Savior, but I believe that's the moment that I was given freedom. Like I got victory over this battle. I was battling over this
Would you
for
say it's
years.
a lot of doubt? Would that be a word for
I don't know
it?
that
if
it was
you could label it?
doubt. I don't know that it was doubt. It was like I felt like an imposter. I felt like a fraud. And Aaron just broke it down. He was like, "Brother, none of those people are going to think that about you. If they do, God help them."
Mm.
He was like, "Those people are
Right.
going to rejoice with
Right,
you. They're going to
yes.
rejoice." And he was right. Everybody I called my dad to tell him. My dad like wept like a baby. He was like, "I'm
Aw.
so glad."
Yeah.
Everybody I told was so happy for me and was rejoicing at the fact. I didn't have anybody push back, but it was that game that the devil was playing of just like, "Oh, you don't resolve," because he wants us to live. Satan wants us to live in defeat and misery because we can't be useful if we live in defeat and misery.
Well,
and
you're always questioning too. You never have the confidence in what
Yeah.
God has done, Yeah, that's exactly what he wants.
Yeah,
the fear of other people's thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
It's just exhausting. It makes you wrestle.
Well, I mean, Satan's the great deceiver. Like he deceives us
Very
in
good
so
at it.
many ways.
Yeah.
He's a pro. His design is to deceive and to draw us away from what God intends for us.
Yeah. And I wonder too, our backgrounds are similar. I loved my home church growing up, but I do feel like I had to step away from it to maybe get some clarity. Not because they were doing anything wrong, but I think because I was leaning on them too much.
Okay.
I've grown so much, not because this place is better, but I feel like I'm more on my own. I'm a little, and an adult, you're just
Yeah.
grown. You just evolve and grow. But that probably helped getting to college and getting out from the shadows of your dad, who was the leader,
Yeah.
and the congregation that probably saw you raised. And
Well, and a lot of those things are what I like to refer to as preferences too. They're not, very few of those things are doctrinal things. They're secondary, tertiary, like
Right.
you could keep going down the line. Some of those things are inconsequential.
but they're a conviction to some, and you can be thankful for that for them.
Sure, absolutely.
like-
if that's what the Lord convicts you of,
Yes,
if
right.
that's what the Lord has laid upon you to live that way, and that's what I tell people all the time, then you should live that way. Paul addresses this in talking, he's talking about the weaker brothers and the stronger brothers and Jews and Gentiles and Jews that have been freed from a lot of that, he talks about like eating meat offered to idols and whatnot. And, he talks about that a lot in the epistles for one to do that thing because it's against their conscience. Well, that's a sin. But for the other that's not convicted of it, it's not a sin.
You can't put your convictions on somebody else either.
Yeah.
Especially if it's not straightforward in the Bible.
Yeah.
So,
Well, from college, my first year, I decided I hated Tennessee. God worked in my life in that one way, and I was like, okay, well, it's time for me to move on because I don't love it here. And it ended up being a great choice because, we'll backtrack a little bit. My senior year of high school, the fourth thing my dad did is he worked at a different Bible college, and he, as a pastor, he was going once a week and was teaching pastoral classes at the college. And one of his best students, Sarah Brown, is my now wife.
Yeah.
He introduced us my senior year of high school So then I'm already dating another girl at the time. We go off, do our first year of college together. We break up, yada, yada, yada. But God used that portion of my life. And I just felt that door close. So I go back to Indiana. I go to this school and meet Sarah again for the second time. And she's like, oh, yeah, I remember you. You know, I was like, yeah, I remember you, yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, that hot girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember her.
I never forgot
I've
you.
never forgotten her. Oh, by the way, my parents already like you.
Being a firstborn, you care about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the secondborn, my brother
Right.
could care less.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I want to say we started dating in January, so like second semester, and we got engaged in May and then married in October. So boom, boom, boom. And
When you know, you know.
yeah, I fell in love with her instantly, and it was just again one of those moments of God making things so clear. Like He had already endeared her to my parents. She loved my parents. My mom had met her a few times through like school activities and stuff like that. So my parents already loved her before I really knew her. And you know, some people would laugh and make jokes about it being an arranged marriage. Like, I guess how you could see it, but it really wasn't. Just knowing that my parents saw good character in her and saw that she would be a good wife for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting to know her myself and then seeing those things that my parents saw. And I was like, this is it. And just boom, boom, boom. We dated for a few months. I was like, I think you're the person for me. She's like, I agree.
Oh.
So we got married 10 months later. I don't know why. This was probably hindsight. I got hired right out of my sophomore year of Bible college to be a youth pastor. In hindsight, I look back at them like, what was that pastor thinking?
He's desperate.
What
Probably.
was he thinking?
He was like, gotta get them.
Yes.
I'm like 19, getting ready to turn 20. What? Like these kids are like some of these kids are like 1 and 2 years younger than me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I'm fresh out of Bible college. I've been raised in this like staunch environment, and I come out of a school that also preaches these staunch things. And I'm like, carrying the banner of truth for these staunch things as well, and trying to ingrain them in my kids that are really my peers. And I did that for 5 years or so. And this is kind of like when the next big, I have a couple times in my life where I can distinctly see God working in big means in my life. And this was one of those times. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I mean, I'm still pretty young in my faith. Like, you think about this. I was 18 years old when I got, security of my salvation.
Mm-hmm.
At 19 and a half, a year and a half later, I'm a youth pastor.
Yeah.
What? And then 3 years later, my mom gets breast cancer. Like, I had not learned life skills to cope with these things. Yeah. And I just began to plummet. I didn't know how to cope with it. We were losing my mom. My mom's still alive, praise God. He brought her through that. But, I could just remember my mom laying in a hospital bed, like barely alive, going through all the chemotherapy and all that stuff. And just like, she was a shell of a human being. Yeah, she was pale, skinny, skin and bones, no hair, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, nothing. And I didn't handle that well. I had a 1-year-old kid, relatively new to marriage, rookie youth pastor, and I just spiraled and plummeted. Like,
in what ways?
It crushed my spiritual walk. I just didn't understand. Like, my parent, by this time, my mom and dad had been in the ministry in a church. And then my freshman year of college, my parents left to go to the mission field. And this is probably 3-4 years after they go to the mission field. And then my mom gets diagnosed with breast cancer. And like, it was like the first real spiritual battle I encountered in my spiritual walk. And it just leveled me, like absolutely humbled me. No, it didn't humble me. It actually showed a lot of weakness and a lot of pride.
Were you like questioning God? Like that
I was
type
angry.
of thing?
I wasn't questioning.
Okay.
I mean, in a sense I was, of like, I guess the stereotypical questions of like, why my mom? She's been so faithful. Why not some sleazeball on the street? Like, my mom's given her life. Why her? So I was battling with those things, but
Sure.
I wasn't ever like questioning God's existence like you hear some people, or
Mhm.
like his goodness.
Right.
In a sense, I was questioning his goodness because I was like, why? Like, I want to trust you on this, but why? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so it really caused me to spiral spiritually. I really got out of my walk with the Lord. It caused me to lean on substances. And I wouldn't say that I was ever addicted physically, but I definitely became addicted spiritually and just mentally to substance abuse, because it's alcohol. I leaned on it because I had developed no coping mechanism for how to deal with trouble.
Yeah.
Like I had never experienced trouble in my walk. I had never encountered anything like this before. And I had, especially since I spiraled spiritually, I had no rock to stand on.
Yeah.
I had abandoned the rock that is Jesus Christ,
Mhm.
and then left him out. I just wandered out to sea, and I guess I'm going to figure this out on my own. And it didn't go well. Like when Peter looks to the water instead of looking to Christ and he starts to sink, that's exactly what was happening. And out of anger, I just wasn't looking to Christ for my rock in that situation. I was looking at my own understanding.
How was your marriage during that time?
It was awful.
Oh.
My marriage was falling apart. I was not only drinking alcohol to try to soothe myself, but I was spending out the wazoo because, everybody knows that spending, makes you
Things-
feel good.
thing-
And so, I got us in like $40,000 in credit card debt, and life just like spiraled out of control. And kind of the next big moment from that, when I saw victory in my life and deliverance from that, I had a friend that had struggled with substance abuse, but like physical addiction from it. And, his was drugs. And he said, "Hey, I've been going to this addictions program. Would you consider going with me?" He's like, "I could really use accountability." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll help you with that." I go to that church on a Friday night with him, and they meet every Friday night, and they're there for like 2-3 hours. And biblically based program. It's really all about discipleship and learning how to trust in the Lord rather than trusting in those things that you're using as crutches, trying to change people's lives that way, helping them change their life by leaning on Christ and helping me find my rock again. But I can remember the first night we left there, I'm driving him home, and he said, "So what did you think?" And I'll never forget my words. I said, I laughed when I said it, and I said, "I didn't realize I was better than every person in that room." And it was just like this somber moment. And not only was my spirit so convicted, my heart was just so convicted by what I said. It like revealed my heart. But even like in the moment, this man that is struggling with, a meth addiction, he looked at me and he said, "You don't get it, do you?" And so I let him go, and I go home, and I was just like, I wept because I was like, how did I get this far? Like, how did I get to this spot where I think I'm better than people? How did I get to this spot where I realized that me leaning on spending, me leaning on alcohol use, how did I get to that point from where I was? And how did I get to the point where my heart was so cold that not only did I not see my own condition, but I saw myself as better than other
Yeah.
people who were in the exact same condition? And it was at that moment. So I had all my material that I got from that night, and I was like, I need to change. Something has to change. And I dove in head first. I was like, I'm just as bad as every other person in this room, if not worse. Like, I can tell you my heart condition's worse than a lot of those people in that room. And God just used that moment to just punch me in the gut and really revealed in me like pride and the lack of trust in him. And really a formational moment for me for my life going forward. Still to this day, like affects how I live my life and how I love people and how I treat
Yeah.
people. So I started to go through that program. I mean, God gave me deliverance from those things immediately because I immediately started putting my trust in him, right? So because God gave me deliverance over that, I literally didn't struggle with it. I quit smoking cold turkey. I quit drinking cold turkey. I did all, like, everything I was doing.
It sounds miraculous, which isn't crazy.
No, it's not. Yeah, you're right. It does sound
supernatural.
miraculous.
Yeah.
I guess the reason I say that I didn't feel like it was an actual like addiction was because it wasn't like I hadn't become physically dependent on that substance. Like some
Wasn't
people
like-
it gets to that point. Some
Oh, yeah.
people they're like chemically and physically addicted to the
Right.
substance. For me, I was spiritually addicted. I didn't want to deal with my trouble the way that God intended me for me to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah.
So instead I just got drunk because hey, that's the easiest way to air quotes deal with it, right?
Mhm.
Just chug this bottle and you'll feel better. Like
Yeah.
for a brief period of time. But God gave me deliverance from that and gave me, very quickly in the studies that I was going through in that program, because it points you back to scripture. I mean, one of the very first things they do is they teach you 10 principles of if God's against it, so am I. I could just go on and on down the list, but it's a lot of good biblical principles. And then they make you memorize Psalm 1. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. And you could go on and recite that. And it's really become my life like chapter because it helped me, do the right things the way that, if God's against it, so am I. So it really like gave me this. What's amazing to me is that like I felt like I ran so far from the Lord. I felt like I ran for a solid year. And it just in a blink of an eye, the rock's back there. Like I had never drifted that far from the rock. It's hard to put that metaphor into place, but like I feel like I was swimming against the tide and I'm out to sea. There's nothing around and I cry for help. There's the rock again. And it was amazing to me to see God work that way. My wife, at the risk of angering her, but I'll tell you a little bit about her backstory. She struggled for years with an eating issue, bulimia, essentially. She doesn't really talk about it a whole lot, but it's really part of that story. She was still struggling with temptations of that when I was going to the program. So I was like, you should come to this program with me. And she went, again, kind of like I did. She went to be a support to me, but then really quickly realized like, I belong too. But we really like the Lord. I look back and I see God's hand of providence so heavy in many situations in my life, but like that one specifically, God gave me victory over that substance abuse. He gave me spiritual victory. And then like, I blossomed spiritually. It's really where my practical spirituality took off. Like when I was in Bible college, a lot of it's like book knowledge and talking about doctrines and this, that, and the other. And like, I knew a lot of things, right? Like I knew a lot of stuff.
I would say it's more academic sometimes for people.
But really, I saw God working in my life when I got into this addictions program. Like if you'd have told me 5 years earlier, like the most spiritual, enlightened you're going to feel in 5 years will be because you walked through the door of an addictions program. And they have like a series of books that you go through, and I like flew through them so quick. I was hungry. I was journaling. I was filling up journals left and right. I had a stack of journals, and I couldn't get enough. I was going to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I was going to Bible study on Tuesday nights. I'd be at addictions recovery program on Fridays, and I just saw a lot of like quick victories and just climbing a mountain, if you will, spiritually. And then the weird thing was, I never saw this coming. They were like, hey, we want you to be the assistant director. And I'm like, I just showed up here like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You want me to be the assistant director? They're like, yeah, we've never had anybody fly through things like you have before. You've gotten complete victory in your life. Your life is miraculously changed. Like your family's blossoming. Your family's in church. Like by that time I had gotten completely out of church. You wouldn't even have been able to recognize me. Like I had grown my hair out. I had a long beard. I looked like Forrest Gump when he goes on his run. So we had gotten involved in that church, and it was just our kids started going to school there, and just really saw the Lord working in our life. And that was it was a chapter of our lives for about 7 years that God used in our lives miraculously, and I'll never forget that. We ultimately left that church. There was some issues that I won't get into on the air because it's not relevant.
Yeah.
We knew some things had happened. We didn't want to leave because God had used that church in our lives so much. We didn't want to leave, and we kept trying to get that trust to rebuild with us. But deep down inside, we both knew that we needed to leave, and we just kept kicking the can down the road because we loved the people there. We loved the
Right.
church. We loved the program that we were working in, but both of us had been led by the Lord to leave. And this is where I started coming down the mountain because I wasn't listening to God. I got very disenfranchised at church because of things that were going on. And it's meanwhile, I could clearly feel the Spirit leading to push us on. I'm not going to lie. I literally had feelings. God was telling me, go to Tabor. You need to go to Tabor.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. We had never visited Tabor before. I had heard good things about Tabor. My wife and I both knew that's where the Lord wants us. But we just didn't listen. We literally didn't listen. And for about 2 years, we just didn't listen. And hey, we should have been here 3 years ago.
Yeah. It is scary though. There's a
Definitely
comfort.
scary.
Sometimes even I'm not saying the church was bad, but it wasn't what you needed in that time. You had maybe seen your season pass, but there's a greater fear in something new that you're called to sometimes than just staying somewhere that's comfortable, but
Yeah.
not even good for you.
Right.
Everybody goes through those seasons. It is hard. It's really
Well, it's
hard.
kind of like a relationship you need to break up in,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You're in a toxic relationship. You need to break it off, but you just don't want to because it's comfortable. You know what it
Right.
is. It's not good for you. It's not what God would have for you, but you're like,
but it's easy.
but it's
Mm,
easy.
yeah.
Yeah, it does. In spite of the fact it has pains, I know what it is.
Right.
You know what to expect. Yeah.
Well,
I'm
and there's always too the fear of the grass isn't always greener. So it's
Sure.
what if
Not good. On
worse
the side.
over
Yeah.
there?
Well, it's there's a lot of, it's kind of like a relationship in the fact that there's a lot of emotions tied up in it
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
You're in a church, you're a family with a church. There's people that
Yes.
you love there. And in spite of the fact that leadership has screwed up, there's still people that you love there.
Right.
And Sarah's parents aren't in the picture. They just, they're not involved at all. They've never been involved with the grandkids. So our kids didn't have grandparents on her side. My parents were missionaries in a foreign country. And so they really didn't have grandparents in their lives. And their grandparents were people at that church.
Mm.
Yeah, of course.
And it's kind of crushing to walk away from that. And we still have relationships with those people, outside of church because they still go there. But it was really hard to make that decision.
bet.
Mhm.
And I can remember one of those ladies, when I would have told her we were leaving, she cried and she was like, I don't want to see you guys leave, but I understand. And, Rachel still checks in on the girls to see how they're doing. We'll go every once in a while if we have a funeral for somebody there or whatever, and we'll get to catch up with people. And, you can always feel love when you come back
Yeah,
and stuff like
yeah.
that. But anyway, so we left there and we knew that the Lord wanted us to come to Tabor. So naturally, we went to a different church. We went to a church in Anderson, and I won't say it because you guys would probably know the church, and that's fine. They were a great church. I love that church. I still follow them on social media. I'm on their email list because
They
I'm
have a good social media account. Unlike Tabor.
I'm cheering for them. God's working
Yeah.
marvelously
Yeah.
in that church. And we were there, I don't know, a couple months. But I told the pastor, he was asking, he's like, how are you guys feeling? Do you feel like this is a place God would have you? And I was like, no, honestly, I don't. I was like, it doesn't feel like home. And he was like, go find home. He
Mm.
was like,
It's nice when people don't get offended by that because
Mm-hmm.
you can
Such wisdom.
be an awesome church or a body or a community
Yeah.
And it still not be the right fit for everybody. Like,
Yeah, it was so much wisdom in that. And I actually later, after we came here, I emailed him and I was like, hey, I want you to know we found a church home.
oh,
And I was like, I wanted to thank you for that wisdom of telling me to go find home, because we realized in a conversation with him too, he's like, I'm not trying to be mean, but if this isn't where God wants you, I don't want you here.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you here. Like, if you're not supposed to be here, it's not good for our
Yeah.
church either.
Right. Mhm.
And I just thought there was so much wisdom in that.
Yeah.
And like you said, a lot of pastors would be upset by the fact of like, oh, is my church not good enough?
Right. Right.
Or try to convince you to stay.
Or try to convince you to stay. So,
Which you understand, don't take
Yeah.
it personally. It's not
Yeah.
you. It's
no,
me.
I thought there
It's
was.
not you. It's me.
I'm the problem. It's me.
I'm sorry, Jamie. I have to break up with you guys. It's not you. It's me. I promise.
It's hard though.
Well, in that church that I came out of prior to going to
The Anderson one.
Yeah.
prior to the Anderson
That
church,
one.
before the church that was really hard to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very similar, slightly less conservative than my upbringing, but pretty close. It was
Yeah,
still King
yeah.
James only. They weren't staunch about women not wearing pants and stuff like that, but it was still pretty. It was, Bob Jones, IFB, pretty
Not-
strict standards.
Not the church in Anderson that you're talking about that you did leave. The other
Correct. The one before that, the
Gotcha.
one that there was some issues that we had to leave.
one. Things change. I don't remember.
No. You're like, what church are we talking about in Anderson?
I
We're
know
on the
now.
same
Okay.
page.
Just checking.
But, and I'm there. I knew that's where the Lord had for me to be, and I submitted to that. It was like, Lord, wherever you want me to be, if this is where you want me to be. I wasn't super comfortable with that, honestly, really quickly, because like I had gotten comfortable with the fact when I walked away from the Lord for a while, I'd gotten really comfortable with the fact that my wife was comfortable wearing, jeans. That I had shaggy hair. I don't even have hair now, but and it's really hard to believe I used to have shaggy hair. But and just a lot of little things of like in my personal studies, I was using the ESV.
Mhm.
And then I'd go to church and I'd be using the King James, and I'm like, I grew up with this, so I know what a lot of this means, but like I found myself feasting. I found myself nibbling on God's word in the King James, using the King James, but I found myself feasting when I found the version that like really
Spoke to you more clearly.
spoke to me. And not to say that the ESV is more, inspired than
Right.
I'm not getting into that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm trying to say. But like
Personally, just for you.
personally, I was
Yeah.
able to glean so much more when I switched versions, and it was like a light clicked for me. I was like,
Mhm.
I need to figure, like, I feel like I should be using the ESV. God's using this miraculously in my life. So I really, like, I at the risk of going back into what I was in Bible college, I started to dig in, kind of like you were talking about earlier. Is like, do I really believe that the King James Version is the only version of
Right.
the Bible to be using? So I started, I dove deep. I got really deep into like textual criticism, and like, I'm reading books upon books upon books. I'm watching every YouTube video I can, like really getting into it. I started studying the Greek and the Hebrew, which I
Yeah.
had taken when I was in college.
Mhm.
Then you start seeing that, like, okay, there's some verses in the King James that were really, really poor translations. Like verses that I had memorized and clung to my entire life. And you look at it in like an interlinear, you're like, how did they come up with that wording?
Mm.
And so like, once I had that moment of like, okay, so maybe this specific version isn't perfect, which I doubt there's a perfect version.
Right. I didn't know the King James was a translation. It felt like that was
Oh yeah. It like, and
the
in the
words
church
that
I came from,
God used.
they believed that the King James corrected the Greek and the Hebrew.
Oh, wow.
Like, for example, my parents were, before they went to be missionaries in the Dominican Republic, they were working with a missionary that was in the Dominican, but was to Haitian refugees. And he was trying to retranslate the Haitian Bible. He was starting a new translation, and he was translating from King James to Haitian Creole because he believed that the King James was more inspired than the original
Mm.
How'd they come up with
manuscripts. I don't
Where
know,
did that-
Leah. I don't have no idea. Where do they come up with most of their
Yeah,
harebrained
that's-
ideas?
Yeah, I'm like,
But I really started, like, that started me down a path of like really questioning a lot of the things that,
You stood for probably.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, you're going to go to Baptist church, you got to wear a suit and tie. You're
Mm.
like, what? What?
does that say that in scripture?
Right. And so I started questioning a lot. I was literally 30 years old, and I don't know. I thought it was really funny because you can spell theology with 30 in it. The E and the O can be flipped around and make a capital.
Oh.
So it was like my 30th trip around the sun was like really a formational year for me. I felt like I was breaking these chains. Like God had given me spiritual liberty, and where I had like woken up and had come back to him, and I was growing. And then he was like, all right, well, now that you've seen this, let's break these chains. And he
Right.
just helped me break chain after chain after chain
Yeah.
That's cool.
of like dress standards, music standards. You know, when I came to Tabor, so I play music. I've been a musician since I was 5 years old. I knew either super, super, super old hymns, like Isaac Watts stuff,
Mhm.
or I knew like Black Sabbath,
Yeah.
right? Like two opposite.
No in between.
No idea like Getty's music or like modern
Yeah.
worship music. Like
Mhm.
I was like, well, if I can play Black Sabbath, I could play at Tabor. And so, I noticed that Jabin hadn't been playing for several weeks because he needed a break. And I was like, well, they only have one bass player. I think I'll volunteer to see if they want another bass player. And Haley was like, all right, do you know this song? And I was like, I'm going to need a week to study these songs. I don't know a single one of these songs. So that was like that was another example of like chains that were breaking. I had my.
We didn't even know that when you took the stage.
I mean, I had been pretty comfortable with the idea. Like God had pre-broken that chain beforehand of like, oh, there's nothing sinful about this music. And so I didn't come in with like that mindset that like this music's
Right.
sinful. It was just like, I don't
You just
know
had an
these songs.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was a relatively new chain break for me. Like I had come to know who the Gettys were in the couple years before I came here. But like, I didn't know who Chris Tomlin was or what his music
Yeah.
was about. And then I went to a Chris Tomlin concert last year. But yeah, there's lots of chains being broken. And so I just kept seeing victory after victory. And it was just really amazing to see like God finally get that like massive breakthrough spiritually in my life. And then not only that, but start breaking the chains that I'd been holding on to for so long. And then really started to, because of my spiritual growth and my journaling, reflecting back on my journal had really let me see a lot of those victories. And so like all these stories that I've told you, like they all started to make sense. Like I saw God's providence and I saw, his sovereignty in like, when I was questioning, like, why did I have to go through an addictions program to get where I'm at? God's sovereignty, right? God's providence. Like he brought me to a point in my life to humble me, to crush myself and bring me to him that I would rely on him. Man, like, thank God for that.
Yeah. Well, and like you were maybe living for a culture or living for traditions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very empowering and very refreshing. You feel like a different person.
Yeah.
When you come into your own walk.
Well, for me, it did get forced on me, but it was forced under the guise of well-intentioned guise of this is what you do and this is how you do it, right? Like, and if you're going to live in my house, this is how you're going to do it. And there's, to be fair to my dad, like it was his house. He says, this is how you're going to live. This is how you're going to live.
Right.
He is my father, to submit to him and to honor and respect him. And so I think that there was, although the mindset there may not have been a biblical mindset, like I think it was God's intention that I did respect and follow my parents and through that. But
there's a lot of freedom though, whenever you let scripture dictate what your convictions are.
Oh yeah.
Versus other people around you saying like, this is how it should be done or whatever. And it's like, just like even the KJV thing, like, why are we doing that? Like when I let scripture and the Lord dictate where my convictions are, I feel like there's just, you're like, this is freedom.
Yeah.
There really is.
Well, and you could edit this out if you want. Or I don't know if you want it on the podcast, and feel free to edit your podcast. But like the fact that I'm a pipe smoker.
Interesting.
Okay. My grandfather was a pipe smoker, and I was just enamored with it when I was a kid. Like I can remember sitting on the front porch in Tennessee in the mountains with my grandpa, and he's just smoking his corncob pipe in a rocking chair, and like I loved it. Like going there in summertime, I could sit in the front porch and watch my grandpa smoke a pipe for hours on end.
See, that's cool to know the background of one of the reasons that you love this, like why you made a podcast
Yeah.
for it. That's cool.
My dad thought it was like my mom and dad both thought it was like the worst thing in the world. Oh, it's like evidence your grandpa's a sinner going to hell, yada, yada, yada. And like for years, I was like, Christians aren't allowed to smoke pipes. It was one of those things that God gave me liberty on. And during COVID, I went and bought a corncob pipe and I was like, I'm locked at home. I'm going to try this. And guess what? I didn't have any convictions about it. You know what? The most amazing thing in the world? I sat in my chair on the back porch and I smoked a pipe and I read my Bible at the same time and God still talked to me. What? That's mind blowing. If you'd asked the church I grew up in, they would have said that's not possible.
I feel like we talked about when you learned about C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, when they used to have their pipe and all that stuff.
You know,
was that kind of like encouragement to you, or were you like, whoa, I never even heard of that? Or
yeah, it actually started they came later. The first person that really so I grew up Baptist, and Charles Spurgeon might as well be like the Apostle Paul talking.
You name your child either Charles or Spurgeon.
Oh yeah, so many Baptist kids named Spurgeon. It's not even funny.
Oh goodness.
But the funny thing that they always ignore is that he was very obese and also smoked smoked cigars. And they don't really talk about that much, or they also don't talk about.
He wasn't a little guy.
He wasn't a little guy.
Well, it's kind of the same concept. There's some like even issues with how the King James came about.
Oh yeah, whole series of episodes on that.
Yeah, and everything you can find an issue in anything.
And so Spurgeon was a big, I'd been raised to read Spurgeon's works as I'm going through, Bible lessons and stuff like that. And I read a lot of his books. I have a lot of his books in my library. And so that was kind of like oh man, I guess if it was okay for him, I think this is the Prince of Preachers.
Yeah.
Like, one of the most powerful, most like convicting preachers in Great Britain in his lifetime. Maybe in history, God used him miraculously, and he smoked cigars the entire time. Like, okay, wow. So God can use me while I smoke a corncob pipe.
That's right.
But I don't know. There's just I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling now about my life, but
that's what we invited you here to do.
Yeah. I feel like I'm just spitballing things about my life. This one time I fell off a bike. Now I'm just. I went too fast downhill and swiped out at the end.
No, I mean it's all a good representation though, because we all go through these seasons and you fluctuate. You can be 90 years old and you can read the Bible, the same passage you read 2 days ago, and it's going to speak to you differently because you're growing. God's changing your heart and your convictions or your beliefs, whatever, it's just so important to continue to move forward. And I feel like that's what your story's representing.
I continue to see God's hand in like proving things are okay to me. Cause like I've always been like, oh, am I allowed to do this? Is this okay?
Firstborn.
And then you see God's hand, but like, it's okay.
Right.
It's going to be okay. So I got into the pipe smoking thing, and then I really dove into the pipe smoking thing and like started going to pipe shows and hanging out with people that smoked pipes at like pipe club meetings and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't have a place that I hang out on a regular basis with other pipe smokers. And my best friend that I had met on Reddit, we had become really good friends. We hung out all the time. We were like, oh, we really should have a lounge around. And I was like, well, how about we just hang out in my basement and smoke pipes? And so we did. We have kindred spirit. We've talked about the gospel a lot. And, basically the only person that knows more about me in this world than him is my wife. So just a really good friend. And we're like, what if we recorded this stuff? And we're just talking about nonsense. You just, shooting the breeze with people.
Well, when it's so easy and fun with somebody, because this is what Lee and I were like, who wouldn't want to listen to us?
Yeah.
Right.
People would want to be here.
Well, so we started this podcast almost 200 episodes in at this point.
Wow.
But
that's way past 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might edit that out because we're going to sound really lame.
We'll edit that out.
I was just like really questioning it. I was like, am I doing the right thing with my life? Like, is this okay? Like, again, that doubt's creeping back in. I'm like, is what I'm doing, like, I enjoy it, but is God okay with this? And then we got our first sponsorship offer, and the company that wanted to sponsor us Now, mind you, that my podcast is about a non-Christian thing. I try to keep it very like secular. I want it to be all inclusive. So I don't talk politics. I don't talk religion. I don't deny my faith. I also don't feel like people listen to a pipe smoking podcast to hear the gospel. If they ask me about it, I'll be glad to talk to them about it. Like I didn't feel like it's right place, right time. Don't ever really talk about it. So fast forward like 130 episodes and we get the sponsor that reaches out, and the sponsor is called Redeemed Pipes. And I was like, I don't really feel like we could provide value for you, yada, yada. But it started a conversation. I'm like asking about their name. And he was like, well, a little bit about myself. I'm a believer. I believe that the symbolism in me restoring these pipes is like symbolism of God restoring us. And like, this is another one of those God moments. And it's just that like little confirmation of like, of all the things that could have been, he sent unashamed Christian based and owned company. And they start asking a lot of questions, and like, we come from similar backgrounds, both have a lot of these same things where we like got a lot of the same victories and stuff. And now he's one of my best friends. We have great friendship, but I don't know. God's just used that like weirdly. Like he used me going through an addictions program, and then he used me having a pipe smoking podcast. Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's cool to see God working through like Balaam's
untraditional channels.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier in another podcast, but basically in all the ways that you don't expect.
Absolutely.
Like everything is unexpected, and it's not in the ways that you would think.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so neat.
Yeah.
Like, I never would have thought that up.
How are you doing things differently with your girls in raising them in regards to bringing in, because it's a hard balance.
Sure.
Because kind of like what we were saying, the intention is so pure and genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And when you love somebody, you want them to walk with Jesus. You want them to know Jesus. So you kind of tell them all these things. How do you balance the concept of directing them, but not forcing them or pushing it?
So somewhat counterintuitive to the way I was raised, in many facets. One of the ways, especially with regards to salvation and baptism as well, I felt convicted to not put pressure on my children to make professions. I've made sure that they know the gospel. We're in a good gospel preaching church. They're in good gospel preaching Sunday schools. They hear the gospel at home. They hear the gospel in their music. They hear the gospel from their grandparents. But
from their youth group.
From their youth group. Yeah, sorry. I listed a bunch of stuff off, but like they hear it everywhere. They're surrounded by the gospel truth. Yeah. That should be sufficient. I'm not the Holy Spirit. I can't convict my kid they need to be a believer. Only the Holy Spirit can work that in their life. And so I can try to strike fear into them, but like, what am I accomplishing?
Right.
And worse, actually, like I'm perpetuating what I went through. I don't pressure my kids into it. They know the gospel. They've heard the gospel. A couple of my kids have made professions and a couple haven't. The young ones, I believe that the seed is being planted. I can, some plant the seed, some water.
Yeah.
But only really the Holy Spirit can cause that blooming to happen.
That's right.
Well, and really when it comes down to it, when you have the sober mindset of what salvation actually is, it's their trusting in Jesus Christ as their Savior. There's no prayer that can make you trust in Jesus Christ as your Savior. There's nothing that you can say. There's no action you can do. And who am I to force that? I can't force them to trust, because trust is exactly that. It's a faith. It's a trust.
Right.
And that has to be a work of the Holy Spirit in their lives. It cannot be a work of dad. It can't be a work of mom. It can't be a work of a pastor. It's not real. You can say all the things you want to say. You can walk forward. You can even cry, but it doesn't make it real.
Right.
So I've taken that stance. Like my oldest daughter was our first child to get baptized. She was just baptized a couple months ago.
And it was very sweet.
She battled with that for a long time, and I didn't force her. I just was like, this is something that God's going to have to convict her that she needs to be baptized.
She's so precious. I love watching her worship too.
She is.
I
feel like she's not the only one that said that either. I feel like lots of people have been encouraged by her.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think
that's great to hear.
There's something very genuine. It just kind of pours out of her.
Yeah.
And
she has a very worshipful heart.
Yeah.
I, obviously she's a teenager, so she
She has moments,
she's
I'm
not
sure.
perfect, let me tell you. Just in case you guys were fooled,
Well,
she's
we
not
all
perfect.
are sinners, so
Yeah.
there's that.
It's very evident sometimes that she's a sinner. Get returned 15. Oof.
Oh,
How much time do we have? I can tell you some stories. No, but she has a soft heart. She loves the
Mhm.
Lord. I have no doubt in that, and I know that He is working in her flaws. He's working in her good moments. You know, she does worship on Wednesday nights at youth group, and she recently just asked if she could do worship on Sundays.
oh, cool.
And so I think that'll probably be a thing in the future, maybe. But oh man, like that kid loves to worship the Lord.
Yeah.
Like
You can see it.
she,
Mhm.
even at home, worship music on. If it's not worship music, it's bluegrass gospel music. Like she's always listening to music, and you know sometimes she'll listen to secular music, but like she just walks around the house praising God, and it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
as a dad, it's like really, it's heartwarming, but it's also like sobering.
Yeah.
So because like it shows me like you could have like that could have been you, but like squandered all this time and you know whatnot. But I'm really glad that difference is making an impact in her life.
Yeah.
But yeah, with regards to like baptism and stuff like that, we haven't really pressed the issue. She knows what the Bible says
Mhm.
Yeah.
about it, and she's like, I'm just not ready.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. She was terrified of water for years, and she
Mhm.
also hates talking in front of people.
Yeah.
And so both of those, she's like, I have to talk in front of people, and I got to get dunked. Can we go to a church that sprinkles?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, there's nothing like watching your kids like actually have a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah,
It's pretty neat.
it is. It's amazing. You know, so Manny and Laura, my two oldest, I have this weird distinction between what I call the bigs and the littles.
Mm-hmm.
All my littles have ever known is my current walk with the Lord. My two bigs know my life before I went to the addictions program.
Yeah.
They were both born. They're both in the picture. They both saw the effects it had on my life. They saw the fighting it caused with their parents. They saw the destruction that came from living that way. And so, you know, part of me is like ashamed of that, but part of me is also like, they get to see victory too. They get to see God work. They'll grow up and be able to look back and be like, look how God changed my dad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a little bit of defeat and embarrassment there of like, oh, look what I put my kids through. I hope they don't have to go to therapy for that someday.
Right.
But
We all go to therapy, so it's okay.
you know, I'm like, oh man, I broke my kids because the way I lived my life before. But there is this also excitement, like, you know, and my testimony really helped Manny
Mm.
because Manny made a profession really early on. She went to VBS, and all of her friends went forward, and so she went forward and made a profession too.
Yeah.
And before she got baptized, we had a really good conversation about. She was like trying to write her testimony out to, you know, talk in front of the church and stuff. She was like, "I'm so embarrassed about my testimony. I can't tell you a date and time I got saved." And then, like, I got to like recount my story with her again, which I had told her before. But like, I got to go through it. I was like, "It's okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. The day and the time and where you were at and what you were doing and what you said and how you cried or how you reacted, it's all irrelevant.
Right. Right.
What matters is you do."
I would say, honestly, probably your walk has been more relatable for your kids. I mean, because those who have kind of a picture perfect story with the date, the time, and all these things, and it's legit. That is awesome, but it's kind of unobtainable for most. I mean, it's not so clear cut.
But there's a lot of people that don't actually know the date and the time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
all that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
We're so ingrained in Christendom today to like, you got to know the day and the
Right.
time and where you were at and who led you and what you said. And like, it's like this thing that we like put this heavy expectation on people that
Mm-hmm.
what, like, where did that come from? That
Right.
you have to cling to this moment. What really matters is that you did
Right.
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It almost felt progressive to me. Like I felt like I came to like I'm not trying to get into like salvation's like progressive or anything like that, but it felt like little moments along the way that led to that ultimate moment. I just don't know when that ultimate moment was.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like I saw little things here and a little thing there and a little thing there.
Oh, and I mean, even now, I mean, like you can be so locked in. I don't have any wavering doubts with my faith, but there's still like just changing and growing and learning and experiencing. And it's just I mean, you know, I don't remember the dates of any of that stuff, but I remember my heart has grown and shifted and softened and humbled, you know, all the things that draw you closer to Jesus. It's constant. So thinking ahead, moving ahead, where do you see, what do you have goals? Do you have what?
Well, talk about how you became healthy, because I did.
Oh, yeah, she did
mention
mention that.
And it maybe even, I don't know this part of it, but is there any revelations in that about God using certain things in that?
Yeah. So, growing up Baptist, I really love casseroles.
Carry in.
I get it.
Pigeons.
We're having a linger longer.
Yeah.
That's what we called it.
Nobody dislikes
Linger
a
longer.
tater tot casserole.
Oh,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
that's-
Chicken and dumplings.
Comfort food was my jam.
Peach
so good.
cobbler.
And I was packed full of comfort food. I had it in every nook, every cranny.
I'm sure there's zero studies done on this, but I would say that almost every Southern Baptist preacher is morbidly obese to some degree.
Rampant.
Yeah.
It's got to be 3/4 of them at least.
Yeah.
And it's funny for a group of people that preach about everything under the sun being a sin, they sure avoid their gluttony.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of sermons about that.
Yeah. No. We couldn't talk about it because we had to linger longer afterward.
Lots about pants and King James versions, but not about the one sin that actually was mentioned that we're ignoring. Yeah, so I got there. I was almost 400 pounds at one point. When I came to Tabor, I was at my heaviest I'd ever been. And, you know, weight has always, I was 10 pounds, 9 ounces when I was born. Weight's always been an issue for me since the day I was born. I've always been a big fella, but, you know, when you find comfort in food, it is very easy to pack it on very quick. And especially after COVID, I started packing it on hard. Just sitting around all you get. For 6 months at COVID, I was locked up. I worked from my bedroom every day.
Yeah.
And, you know, when the world seems like it's falling apart, it's easy to find comfort in food.
Well, and food is just for everything, a celebration,
right?
For a mourning, for whatever. That's
Well, it's so
food.
Societally acceptable.
Yeah.
And it's like, kind of going back to the sin, like gluttony's the one sin that nobody really talks about.
Right.
It's so out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Like in today's, I don't know, I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to shame anybody or anything like that. I'm still a big person. I still have a lot of weight to lose, but, you know, God really had made a lot of changes in my life and was really convicting to me of okay, I've worked on you as a father, but how well can you father your children if you can't do basic things like climb stairs to go be with them? Or I found myself instead of me being the father, I felt like I was being mothered by my children because I was so big and I had so many health problems. I just laid in the couch and in the recliner all the time.
Yeah.
And so they were waiting on me hand and foot. I had tons of health issues. My life physically was just falling apart. I was miserable.
Oh, yeah.
And God really convicted me of that and was like, you know, you're not really being a father. You're not playing with your kids. You're not teaching one of the biggest lessons you're teaching your kids is being morbidly obese is okay.
Yeah.
That eating the way that you're eating is okay. And spending all the money you're spending on junk food is okay. And, you know, we're not really in a kind of a borderline spiritual versus physical battle here. But in this moment, it was actually a spiritual battle. God was really convicting me of this sin in my life and showing me that I was really failing my children.
Yeah.
I was failing to parent them to the best ability that he could give me. And so I had tried for years with much failure to lose weight. I mean, I'd do this crash diet and I'd lose quite a bit and then I'd get off of it because it wasn't sustainable and I'd gain it all back.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure half of our listeners identify with that.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody.
We all struggle with that because
Well, and I feel like in our lifetime too, being raised by the previous generation, they had so many fad diets
Yeah.
come out. I mean, we've seen the Atkins phase and the keto
like
phase,
low
and
fat and
Whole 30 phase. I mean, like all these,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, trends.
yeah,
And we've tried them all.
we also have, as a society, have played God, right? Like we have manufactured all of this air quotes food, and it's terrible for us. It's full of garbage and junk, and it's not what God intended for us to eat. Not saying that what I'm doing is what God intends for us to eat like, but it's a lot closer than it was when I was eating Twinkies and Doritos and
There's more
Mountain Dew.
Yes, more intentionalness with it.
Yeah. And so God like really convicted me of like, I was neglecting the fact that I was made a steward over my children. I was made a steward over my finances. I was made a steward over this body that he gave me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't stewarding well with any of that.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of these thoughts we just talked about were going through my head of like, I need to cut the garbage that he didn't intend for me to eat out. I need to, use my body like he intended me to use. So like I should be doing physical things and not being a glutton, controlling how much I eat. And, there's a whole host of things that come along with that. And so when I started my journey, I was 388. And I had to get down to that for the scale to work. So I don't know where I was at actually, but the scale finally registered when I weighed in at 388. And I'm down almost 140 pounds.
Wow.
Since
so cool.
January of 24. So a year and a half. Stalled way off, but still living the same lifestyle, trying to do the same things. It'll come off eventually, but it's being intentional with how I eat, what I eat, how much I eat. What am I eating it for? Am I eating it for fuel, which is what God intended food for us?
Food stuff is so hard. It's
very hard.
Rated in the concept of like addiction and struggle, because it's the one substance that you can't just cut it out like drugs
you can
or alcohol.
Cut crack out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. There's no like, which is easier, but food, you have to somehow overcome an addiction and a obsession and still use it. You know what I mean? Like that's so hard. When I was in school, I had to do we had to do these classes, like AA meetings for a clinical for mental health. And we had to go to some addiction classes, and you could do them online. And I chose the food addiction one. And I feel like nobody thinks of that as like an AA meeting. Yeah. And it was maybe more of the vulnerable group than the others. And somebody said that about like how difficult it is, because whatever holiday's coming up, it's going to be who's bringing what food. Yeah. And whatever funeral's coming up, who's bringing what food. And it's like all the time there's always, and you can say like, okay, I'm going to try better this week. But the first of this week, they're bringing pizza in at work.
You don't have to go far to find a fix for food.
Sugar is the most societally acceptable drug in our culture. Like it literally alters your brain just like drugs do.
Your whole body.
Yeah,
I mean, like in medical fields, like so much of what goes bad is because of sugar.
Yeah.
It feels like anybody with legit illnesses are almost always paired with diabetes.
You look at a lot of the health issues we have in our society today. If you remove sugar from most of those people's diets, they improve drastically, like almost overnight for some people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Europe, they refer to Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes.
Yes.
I've been hearing that. It's like a good gift gone bad, like, or abused, really. Like a gift that God has given us, all these different ways that you can make food and all the ways you can find food and all these things. But it's like, it quickly became something that wasn't good.
Yeah.
Well, we got off on a tangent there. Sorry. I didn't mean to get into like dietary issues with our society and whatnot.
So Justin, like after hearing your story up until this point, like what's something that if someone was basically in your shoes, or somebody struggling with their faith or their weight or, addictions of some sort, like what would be a really important thing that you would tell them?
Well, I talked about this earlier with my life chapter, Psalm 1. It's really a good roadmap on how to walk. And it talks about a lot of things in there. It talks about like who not to be around, what not to do. But it also ties in. It says, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law does he meditate day and night. And then there's a promise that comes with that. And it says, and he shall be like a tree by the rivers of water that brings forth fruit in his season. His leaf doesn't wither. His leaf shall not wither. Whatsoever he doeth prosper. It says, but then it goes on and gives a comparison. It says, the ungodly are not so, but are like chaff which the wind drives away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. You see this like stark contrast, right? And that's where that like principle, if God's against it, so am I. Like,
Yeah.
God says, don't sit down and like unite with unbelievers. Yeah, we're sojourners in this world, right? Like we have to engage with unbelievers, but like I'm not to do the things that unbelievers
Right.
do or hang around with unbelievers. You're my people. Like you are my people. They are not my people.
Right.
They're citizens of this world, and this is where their world will end essentially until until damnation. And it's heartbreaking, but it's also a reality of like we are not of this world. We're just sojourners here. We are different. We are called. We're set apart. We are, God's people are all, even into the Old Testament, we're always called to be different. And that passage really speaks to that of like how to walk, who to walk with, who not to walk with, and then leaning on, where your delight should be. Your delight should be in the law of the Lord, and then clinging to that promise of that. And you'll see that fruit. You'll be like that tree by the rivers of water. And that is applicable. That I have found that to be so applicable in so many ways in my life. I've found it to be applicable with who I'm hanging out with and who I'm, identifying with. Where I find my joy. Is my joy in like, yes, I have joy in all these other things, but like I have to constantly keep myself in check of like, my delight should be in the law of the Lord. My delight should be in the Lord himself. And if my delight in the Lord becomes secondary to anything else, whether it be food, whether it be a hobby, whether it be a sports team, whether it be my wife, like recipe for disaster. Like that promise is right there. Recipe for good, recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
This is how the ungodly walk. This is how the godly walk. And, that clear delineation there of like, and it's a constant reminder to like keep your focus on what the focus needs to be on. Because if my delight is first and foremost on my relationship with my wife, I'm going to fail. If my delight first and foremost is on God and his word, I will succeed at being a husband.
Yeah.
Right. I'll succeed at being a friend. I'll succeed at being a father. I'll succeed at, being an employee, a boss, whatever. It's not to say like that's some sort of prosperity, like you're always going to be successful, but by and large, like you're going to see fruit from your delight being in the right place. And it keeps that perspective in the right spot.
Gives you a sense of peace and joy that you can't obtain.
And to clarify, you mean more like with unbelievers, not necessarily like having super deep relationships. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, so I have friends that are unbelievers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying you should cut them off and be completely
Right,
separate. Like, I'm
right.
starting to sound like my old school Baptist ways.
We're just clarifying.
Yeah, I guess the biggest, you see this a lot in Proverbs, not making pacts and going into business. And, like, there's a lot of different things like my people are my people, and those are the people that I should have those deep, meaningful relationships with. And when you catch the flip side of that and you are your life is patterned after, if your life is focused on unbelievers, and like being around them and doing what they do, you're already starting to head down a wrong path, right? Because they are in their very nature set against God. Unbelievers are. I mean, we're completely and totally depraved before we come to belief in Jesus
Right.
Christ, and like nothing in them longs to love the Lord. Nothing in them longs to serve the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Their desires are antithetical to what biblical desires should be, and so that principle there in Psalm 1 is really talking about like not necessarily about who you shouldn't be around, but like intentionality about what you're doing around them. Like it talks about walking, sitting, standing.
Mm-hmm.
Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. It's about like this. It's progression too. It's like he's walking, and then he stops and he stands there for a while, and then he sits. So it goes to show you
Settling
where you're
in.
walking with unbelievers.
Yeah.
The next thing you know, you're congregating with them, and then the next thing you know, like you're right in the mess with them.
Yeah.
And that was a real big principle for me. It's been formational. As I've gone along, I can see the application to it. But literally, when I had just come out of when I had just gone through that program, all of my friends were unbelievers. They were doing deeds of darkness. They were
Yeah.
pushing me to do deeds of darkness, and they weren't pushing me towards the Lord. They were pushing me away from the Lord, and they wanted me to do things that were diametrically opposed to what He had intentioned for my life. They weren't going to push me closer to the Lord, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, it was very real to me in that moment, but it has continued to be real along the way. Like I do have friends that are unbelievers, but like I have a clear delineation of like, this person here is a real friend to me. They're going to not only am I friendly with them, but they push me to Christ. They push me to be better for Christ. They push me to be a better father, a better husband.
Yeah.
They push me spiritually. They ask how I'm doing spiritually. We have spiritual discussions where, when a believer has that same kind of relationship with an unbeliever, oftentimes it pushes away.
Right.
There is a sense of, I don't want to talk about my belief around them because I'll make them upset.
Mm-hmm.
And before you
Yes.
know it, like you're on the verge of like denying Christ.
Right.
And, it doesn't progress well.
Yeah. The saying, you are who you hang out with kind of
sure.
thing. And I know I've heard this as like a financial idea, but they'll say you want to always be the poorest in the room.
Sure.
So you don't want to be the richest in the room because
You
you're
also wanna
going to
be the
gain
dumbest person
nothing
in the room.
from people. Yeah. You want to be the poorest in the room and surround yourself with those who are going to uplift you and help you go that way. It's same concept with wisdom. I mean, in regards to richness, you don't want to be the wisest in the room because how's that going to help you?
Mhm.
And there's a time and a place,
Sure.
right? So I'm not saying like
Well, I
you
think
said.
I
Right.
think in the person that has that true wisdom, even if they are in reality the wisest person in the room, they don't think they're the wisest
Right.
person in the room.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Because in theory, if you think that you're the wisest person in the room, you're probably not.
You lack humility, so you're an idiot. Oh, well, I feel like we could go on and on about so many
We've
things.
recorded so long.
I know. This is how we do. We're like, we're just going
We
to do it
do.
for like 40
We
minutes.
just go
and then
until we stop.
yeah.
We're on what, episode 6 now?
Yeah. So we, like, we're learning all this still.
Yeah.
We're enjoying it though. I mean, I feel like each episode is bringing different things. And,
I will say this though, I do see similarities in some of the episodes too.
Mhm.
And actually, when you were just talking about the journals that you have that you just journaled away, and every person we've had on here has talked about that.
yeah.
And how when they've been able to look back on those journals and see what God has done. And that was to me like, I just realized it when you said it. I'm like, Lindsay said, and Jen said that. And I'm like, that's significant.
yeah.
And noteworthy, really.
Mm-hmm. Ba-dunch.
Yeah.
Well, and I just appreciate you sharing and finding value in your story because I feel like some people downplay it. They're like, I don't know, it doesn't they act like it's not a big deal, but anytime God moves and anytime
Mhm.
God is present, it's a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
And it is
Yeah.
worth sharing, and it's so powerful and so miraculous, and he's just such a big God. He's such a good God.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to talk about.
Yeah.
It
Let me
is.
speak to one more thing about the journaling. One of the most impactful things that was like an aha moment for me. This has happened 3 times to me. I don't know why. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that like God spoke to me, but like I got impressed while I was journaling on multiple occasions to just go forward in my journal to a random page and just say, go back to such and such date. And I've done that on 3 different occasions. And every time the thing that was there was exactly what I needed in that
Wow.
moment. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sitting there journaling on this thing, and it's like maybe I'm writing my thoughts about something I've read, and I don't even understand why I got that out of that passage.
Yeah.
It felt very unfulfilling in the moment. There's been times, like there'll be times where you journal about your like devotions or whatever.
Mhm.
And you're like, why am I writing this
Yeah.
down? This makes no sense to me. And holy cow, like
Oh, yeah.
going back and you flip that like push to tears. Like
Yeah.
God knew exactly what day I was going to get to that page. He knew exactly what I would need on that day and that time. And then like he showed me, he's like, I got this. It's really cool. Like journaling is life changing.
Mm.
It is life
Yeah,
changing.
I think I used to journal quite a bit, and I feel like I've kind of gotten out of it a little bit because I think when I go through really hard spots in my life, like I'm quick to pick it up, start writing stuff. But when things kind of chill out, I'm not, and I feel like I should definitely keep
Yeah.
doing that, you know, and just reminders of what God has already done.
Mhm.
I mean, that's basically a lot of scripture is people going back, building these like memorabilia stuff, like the Ebenezer's and all these things, these monuments to remember what God has done. And I feel like that's almost like a practical way for us to do the same thing.
Yeah.
To like go back and be like, see, he was faithful here.
Yeah.
So,
No, yeah. I feel like those are really big things. And it's just been a reminder for me personally just to keep doing that. Because I really do go back and I have read things before that I've written. And even just seeing like in the depths of despair that you can get and like remembering that when you're in a good place and being like, see, you don't stay there.
Yeah.
God brings you out of that. Because in those places, you can also think to yourself, I'm never going to get out of this. Like, this is how it's always going to be. I automatically can tend to be that way. Like, everything is like very final for me. I'm like, all of a sudden my arm hurts. I'm like, well, now I have to live with this forever. So like if something bad happens, I'm like, this is my life now, you know? And I feel like the Lord is really faithful when I've done that and written that, and to be able to look back and be like, he didn't leave me there,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know? So yeah, I think that's already something that I have felt impressed upon since all of you have encouraged me. And it's a good job, Justin.
thanks. Thank
Yeah.
you guys for having
Thanks
me
for the
on. This is
encouragement.
Thanks for coming. And
Yes, thank
I-
you.
you've made this so important to yourself. And it was a passion of ours, it was an idea of ours, and out of nowhere, out of pure generosity, you're just like, this is important to me because it's important to them. And we don't hardly even know each other that
Yeah.
well. And that has been very impactful. It makes me feel not indebted, but just like I can't pay you back
No,
for
yeah.
the encouragement. And I'm just
As soon
we're
as I
thankful
heard
for
the
ya.
idea, I fell in love with it immediately.
I know. And I that it was
It
helpful
felt
to us
so
because it was like,
encouraging.
yeah.
It felt so encouraging.
Seriously, thank you for
It was my pleasure.
investing in us. And
Yes,
I
for
know
real.
you're busy and you have a beautiful family, and any
do.
time spent away is hard.
We appreciate
a big
all
deal
the
to us. Yeah.
effort that you
Anytime I can help, I'd be glad to. I'm so excited for your guys' project of doing this.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes,
we
thank you.
we'll have to do it again sometime.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you. This is Story by Story.
And we were there for almost 10 years. And about 2 months before we left, one of the deacons came up and he said, "Hi, are you guys new here? I've never met you before."
Gosh.
I was like, "Well, actually, you're our deacon." Because at that church,
Yeah,
you
actually,
had,
we're family.
we had,
They had like little
they had like a
sectors.
group of people.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Yeah, you're the guy that was supposed to be like visiting us and praying for us on a monthly
Oh,
basis."
goodness.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he was your
our
deacon.
deacon.
You're assigned
Oh,
deacon.
wow.
Yeah, our
okay.
assigned deacon.
Man,
And
that stinks.
my wife was like, "Yeah, we've been going here for about 10 years now." And he was like, "Oh, really? I've never met you before." And I'm like, "Cool.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I know who you are."
Well, seriously, thank you for
It was my pleasure.
investing in us. And
Yes,
I
for
know
real.
you're busy and you have a beautiful family, and any
do.
time spent away is hard, but you
We appreciate
a big
all
deal
the
to us. Yeah.
effort that you
Anytime I
give
can
for us.
help, I'd be glad to. I'm so excited for you guys' project of doing this.
Well,
We are too.
we are too. Yeah. I don't
can't
know if
wait
we're
till
going to be the
episodes-
only 3 listening, but
I can't wait till these start dropping and I can actually listen to them.
Yeah.
I just hope we get there.
Oh,
we
you'll
can figure all that
I'm
out.
going to make sure you get there.
Aw.
We'll sit down and
I believe that.
We'll hash it out.
I believe that. So, well, thank you so much.
Yes,
we
thank you.
We'll have to do it again sometime.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you. This is Story by Story.